Chipper Formula. Today we're going to be doing an intro to the F1 Fantasy, our teams, and much more. I'm Hector.
Maxwell.
And I'm Pranav.
We're going to be looking at drivers that are overpriced, who to avoid, and who's big bargain. And we're going to be going over the chips and the rules and how it works. Let's start with you, Pranav. Explain to me F1 Fantasy.
So F1 Fantasy is where you have 5 drivers, 2 constructors, 100 mil. You get points for qualifying, you get more points for races, and you lose points for losing positions, and you gain points for gaining positions. F1 Fantasy tends to reward drivers who have slightly worse qualifying, but then they gain positions and do well in the race, which is why someone like Hamilton is always kind of a good person, because he always gets a lot of overtakes done in the race. Moving on to the chips, you have 6 chips that you can use. One of them is the final fix, meaning you can only use it in the final race. Then your other 5 are all separate. So you've got Limitless, where you have unlimited money, unlimited transfers for one race weekend. You tend to use this on sprint weekends, because obviously you can get points for the sprint and points for the race. Then you have wildcards, meaning you have unlimited transfers for one weekend. On the topic of transfers, if you have, for example, you have 3 free transfers. If you make 4 transfers, then the 4th transfer is minus 10 points. So for every extra transfer you make, that's minus 10. Autopilot. So basically you have something called 2 times DRS, which you can put on one driver, which gives them double the points. And autopilot basically puts that on whoever scores the most points. For example, if you have it on Verstappen, but actually Russell scores more points than Verstappen, then the autopilot will change the 2 times boost to Russell. There's no negative. So as I said, you lose points for losing positions, you lose points for crashes, you lose points for not starting or not qualifying. And no negative means you don't lose points. So you tend to use that around street circuits like Monaco, Singapore, where there's a higher chance of crashing. And last but not least is 3 times boost. This basically works as you have the 2 times boost on one driver, but you have an additional 3 times boost that you can put on another driver as well. So that just gives you some extra points on the weekends where you're kind of certain one driver is going to cook. Yeah, that's it for the chips.
Hopefully you understand that now. Let's move on to the prices for the season. I'll start. So for my bargains, I'd say it has to be the Haas in general, particularly Ollie Behrman. I'd stay away from Esteban Ocon. He was routinely beaten by a 19-year-old last year, so I don't see him doing much better, even if the car is good. I think Behrman, spoiler, but he's in all of my teams, and Haas as well. So that's a good one to have. And as you said, Pranav, the system rewards drivers who maybe are slightly worse in qualifying, but tend to overtake people in races, which is why Hamilton is consistently good. Verstappen is consistently good, even though he is always having good qualifying. But if he has a bad qualifying, he'll go from 17th to 3rd, 17th to 1st. So 2 constructors as well that go towards your overall cost of 100 million. The triple formula, actually, we do have a league. We of course have a league in between our members, but we have a league open to the public, which we are also in, so you can compete against us. And it'll be nice to see your F1 knowledge. And I think overall, the teams that are overvalued for me have to be McLaren. I know that might sound weird to people who think McLaren just won a back-to-back World Constructors Championships and Lando just won the World Drivers' Championship. Well, because of the new regulations, they're not going to be the fastest this year. And they're quite overpriced because it feels like F1 felt like they had to be kind of felt like PR, in my opinion. But for me, the most overpriced team has to be Aston Martin. Don't get a single Aston Martin driver. Don't be fooled for Alonso's 2-time World Championships. We all know he's a brilliant driver, but that Honda engine is unstable. The car is slow, and they didn't compete really any laps in Bahrain. Stroll, obviously, he's 8 million, and he should be on the level of Bottas. He is ridiculously awful driver, and even if the Aston was fast, that's still overpriced because Stroll is just not a good driver in general. And as we can see, because he has 4% pick rate, I think the reason there's such a big difference between, say, the 22 million that Charles Leclerc is and the 6 million that Sergio Perez is because this year's, as I said, the new regulations. Looking at the grid is still going to be, it's going to be really spaced out, but don't be fooled. You're going to need a consistent team, as maybe the timesheets might say that the drivers are so far apart, but the point system is still going to be the same. So those midfield drivers like the Alpine and even the Williams, even though their car is slow and heavy, they're still going to be in the midfield. Getting those drivers are very important. But my final underrated car and team and constructor has to be Ferrari. As I said, Hamilton is always good, but Leclerc, he's going to be challenging for a championship, and he is the sixth most expensive, below Antonelli, below Piastri, below Norris, below Russell, below Verstappen. And that is, in my opinion, a complete steal. So try and get Ferrari, try and get Haas, and try and avoid Aston Martin, try and avoid Audi because this is their first time doing everything. So their engine seems to be crashing and they seem to be stalling quite a lot. So try to avoid those teams and try to get bargains and a consistent team. Over to you, Maxwell. Do you want to explain how the system works?
So essentially, you can do up to 3 teams. And I think if you do 3 teams, the main thing that you should try is to have different guys and different things. And I understand that there might be a chance where you're like, of course, I want Leclerc in every single team because the Ferrari is going to be strong. But that's not fully the idea if you're going to do multiple teams. The idea is that you have some with the main core guys and you have some where you've got really strong drivers and some really weak drivers and combine them together and you just try different things and see what really comes out on top. So in my first of 3 teams, by the way, there's no order to how good each team is. As I said, you can kind of just try whatever. There's no specific order. It's not first team, second team, third team. It's just team 1, team 2, team 3, no specific order. So in my first team, I've got Russell and Leclerc. I've got Russell on the 2 times. And then I've got Behrman, Gasly and Lawson. And then I've got Haas and Alpine for my constructors. This is my, if I had one team, this is who I'd select. I think Russell and Leclerc will compete for a championship, and then Behrman and Haas, super cheap and will be good. And I got both Alpine and Gasly, and then Lawson's kind of my throw-in for being relatively consistent and will sometimes have a big race, sometimes won't, but most of the time will stay in and around a solid number of points.
So for my first team, as you said, Maxwell, it's not based on skill. I have to disagree with you about Lawson being consistent, but he can pull off the change. But this is definitely my weakest team. I've gone for Verstappen, Hadjar, Colapinto, Antonelli, Behrman, Haas, and Williams. I've got Verstappen on the 2 times, but as I said, this is definitely my weakest team, and I think Verstappen won't be challenging for the title. I think it'll be Russell and Leclerc. But I think just in case he goes on a madness, that's why I've got him. And Antonelli, same thing. I think he'll be just outside of that title fight, but just in case he goes really well. Behrman, he's in all my teams, as I said. He's just a great option, and this year he'll kick on. Hadjar, I've got him in because why not? And I think that he'll be the first to buck that Red Bull trend. We've got no Marco, you've got no Horner, and I think the Checo Perez's comments about the teams being favoritizing Max, and Albon doing an interview saying that the moment you get pulled away, Verstappen will just make the car more and more sharp. But I think that now that the 2 biggest sharks almost at Red Bull are gone, Hadjar will be able to keep up and he'll be the first to buck that trend. Over to you, Pranav. Let's see your first team.
So my first team, like Max, was probably my strongest team. I've got Verstappen on the 2 times with Russell. So those 2, I think, are going to be competing with the championship. Obviously, people think that Red Bull aren't going to do well, and I understand. Going to see Mercedes and Ferrari, but I think, like last year when Red Bull didn't have a good car, I think Verstappen's still going to be right up there. Which is why for the first race, I've most likely got him on the DRS. But something I didn't mention before is you can change your team after free practice, but by the time qualifying starts, that's when your team's really locked down. So you can also use practice data as something to change your teams around. But carry on with the rest of my team. I've got Gasly, Albon, and Behrman. Obviously, I think these are 3 very, very solid drivers. I think they're going to be in the midfield right up there. Behrman's very undervalued, as Hector has him in all 3 teams. I have him in 2 of my 3 teams. I've got Haas in all 3 of my teams as my constructor, and I've got Racing Bulls as the last constructors because I think they're just going to have a solid time, and I prefer them over new team like Audi and Cadillac, who are going to struggle because it's their first year. Yeah. Team 2?
So in my second team, I've got this is my I've got a couple of really strong guys and then everybody else is kind of crap. So I've got Antonelli and I've got Verstappen on the times 2. And then I've got Perez, Behrman, and Bortoleto. And then for my constructors, I've got Ferrari and Cadillac. And normally you don't want to go for too big of a constructor because that obviously can lead to what I have exactly, where I've had to take Perez and Bortoleto and the Cadillac constructors to manage to fit in two good drivers. But I thought it could be good for a change, and considering I don't have any Ferrari drivers in this team, I can still fit them in without having to pay all that money for those two together. And I think at moments, both Bortoleto and Perez will be quite good. So I'm pretty happy with that. And obviously, Behrman is super solid, and like Hector, I've got him in all three teams.
I think, Maxwell, that team, no offense, but you're out of your depth. If you're someone just playing this game, you don't want to go for a big constructor and go all in on like big names in the same team. It's just not the place to do it. You've got to spread it evenly. And I think that's why I have gone for Ferrari as my big constructor, for Haas as well, but I spread across the rest of the drivers. I've not got a weak driver. I've got Leclerc on the DRS2X. I've got Gasly, Behrman, Sainz, and Hadjar, and I think this is my most consistent team. If it was just based on driver skill and like average, this would be my team, and I think I've got a really solid team too, who just consistently all be in the points.
So for my team too, I'm kind of looking at it. I'm like, where's all my money gone? I've got Ferrari and Haas as constructors. I've got Leclerc, Hadjar, Behrman, Sainz, Gasly, with Leclerc on the DRS, and I'm like, I've not got two big drivers.
Have you got the same as me?
We have. Oh my days. I
You've
think
got
we
the
actually have the same team.
We have the same.
Well, I mean, that's very unlikely with all the permutation and combinations. I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of hyped up your team, and I'm kind of like, I'm not very happy with it. I mean, I think that
No,
shows our current.
Pranav, if you think about it, I'm hyping up the team because that's how you play a big constructor. If you're playing
I think,
our money's gone for this team to a big constructor.
yeah.
If you only want to do one team with one big constructor, and that's what I think we've done well, and we've got Leclerc as the big name, but the four out of the other five drivers, we've not got a single dud, and I think on most races, all of these drivers will be in the points.
My only worry was that Hadjar, obviously, as a Red Bull fan, I'd love to see him consistently scoring points, but we saw last season with the second driver. I mean, I hope it's not going to happen again. It's probably not going to happen again. But last season, Tsunoda was like 17th in the championship. He got like no points. And that's kind of what I was worried about, not having two main drivers, as you see on my third team, which is slightly different. But again, as you were saying, I think it's a very strong core. There's like my worst driver is Behrman. I mean, that's amazing. Behrman's very good. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm still questionable about Hadjar, obviously. You can change it throughout the season, so that's obviously good. But yeah, I'm still just a bit questionable for this.
The only problem is that I too wouldn't like to have Hadjar, especially at that price. The only thing is, since the drivers are so spread out because of the new regulations and the cars are just so different in pace, you can't save really money in between because the difference between Hamilton and Hadjar is about 8 million. So it's not worth doing that. And I think just getting a solid, cheap bargains is just gonna take you through. And Maxwell, do you want to take us through your third team?
So in my third team, I've got Piastri, Leclerc on the times two, Hamilton, Colapinto, and Behrman, and I've got Haas and Racing Bulls. I'm pretty happy with this team. In all of my teams, I tried to make sure that I had two good quality drivers and then one decent constructors. That was my main aim. And I think I did pretty good with that. And I've got both Ferrari drivers, which will be good. The Racing Bulls will be risky with Lindblad's crashing, but I think that'll be good. And I think with all my teams, I'm pretty happy. They're kind of going for different sorts of vibes, some more attacking, some kind of going for like a medium sort of idea. And I think they'll all be pretty strong together as a group. And I think with this third team, it'll be quite good. Three really strong drivers, and then Behrman obviously will be super good. And the Haas team, who will also be quite strong. I wanted Colapinto and Racing Bulls. Whether or not they will be crash happy or not we'll have to see. But at this moment in time, that's who I've got.
All right, so I've got Racing Bulls, Haas, Behrman, Colapinto, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Russell on the 2X. My worries are with Racing Bulls. I think I trust Colapinto to maybe have a couple of crashes, but I trust that he's got the pace to back it up and even it out. But I think with the Racing Bulls, Lindblad, was so crash happy last year, and he was almost like every 3 laps, it was just like routine to see, oh, Lawson's collided, Lawson's had a collision, yellow flags, Lawson. It was like every single race, Lawson in 17th has collided with Behrman, Lawson in 17th has collided with Ocon. It seemed like a routine thing, and that might hurt this, but I think Lindblad, he might get a few results. The Racing Bulls hasn't looked the fastest car, maybe 8th or 9th so far, and I think maybe he might be able to get a couple 7th, 8th, 9th. May a podium is a stretch. I think he will be crash happy, so that's my only worry about this team. Otherwise, Hamilton's good, and George will be title challengers, and Behrman is a steal. So I think overall that is a good team, and I rate my teams, and I think I'll still be tinkering with them between now and Australia, but it's good enough for me.
As I was saying, similar teams. I think all three of us have got the same constructors of Racing Bulls and Haas. As you were saying, a bit of a worry with Racing Bulls, 2 new rookies. They might get a bit too crash happy, but I think,
I didn't know Lawson was a rookie.
I mean, he is basically a rookie at this point. Only 1 season really under his belt. Last season, Racing Bull, they actually did quite well, I think. The standout race for me was Austria, where they had both drivers in the points, and they had both drivers ahead of both Red Bulls, the main team. That's kind of what I'm hoping. Well, obviously not hoping Racing Bulls beat Red Bull, but that's kind of where I'm hoping Racing Bulls are up there to get me those points. My drivers have gone for 3 strong drivers: Hamilton, Antonelli, and Leclerc on the DRS. And my other 2 drivers are Colapinto and Albon. I think Albon's going to have a solid time in the midfield. I think Colapinto is one of my kind of undervalued drivers of, he's half the price of his teammate. Yeah, I think Alpine are going to do really well. I think Colapinto is going to bring back the 2024 form. I think he's going to do well. So I put him in there as well. If you're still kind of struggling with, I don't really know who to pick, I'll do a quick run through of some of the staples that you saw, as some of our teams are very similar. So the main constructor was Haas, obviously cheaper option, very undervalued. I think that's very good to have. If you want an expensive, like a big team, big 4, take Ferrari. They're like 5 or 6 million less than the other 3 teams, and I think they're going to have quite a good season. Drivers wise, Behrman, he's got a 58% pick rate on current day right now, and I think he's just really undervalued. Again, Leclerc, Hamilton, we said good qualifiers. Keep saying Ferrari. Those 2 are good to have, and then maybe one of the big drivers like Verstappen or Russell. Obviously, the prices will start to even out, so watch out for that. The Aston will probably drop, the Haas will probably rise. So keep giving an eye. Wait, one sec. Keep an eye on the driver prices, just so you stay updated and you've got a team which is like way under the value. But yeah, that's about.
Also, if you're playing with 3 teams, make sure to not just go. I'd recommend playing with 3 teams unless you want to challenge, but make sure not to go with like the same drivers, similar team, because say you might think like you're for sure, like in your mind, you're for sure that Leclerc is going to have a good year, but there's a slight thing in the back of your mind thinking that Antonelli might go on and win it, might do a Max Verstappen 2023. Put him in one of the teams. What's the worst that could happen? Just try and mix it up a bit. Don't go for the same thing and everything. But that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Just leave your comments maybe about your teams, hot takes for the next podcast, and what we would do wrong. Laugh at us in the comments. I'm Hector.
I'm Maxwell.
And I'm Pranav.
That's for today's video. Bye.